It was a quiet afternoon when everything changed. My pregnant wife and I were just heading home after running a few errands, unaware that we were about to be caught in a nightmare we never saw coming. We'd only lived in the neighborhood for a few months, but we'd heard rumors about the so-called HOA cops, a group of overzealous residents who like to take their rules way too seriously. But I never imagined they'd get physical. Out of nowhere, a couple of these fake HOA enforcers approached us, demanding we move our car from a spot they'd arbitrarily decided was reserved. It seemed harmless at first, a simple misunderstanding, but things escalated fast. My wife, heavily pregnant, tried to reason with them. That's when one of them grabbed her arm, twisting it hard enough to make her scream in pain. I lost it. This wasn't just about parking spots anymore. It was about protecting my family. I reached for my Glock 19. Before they could blink, I emptied the magazine, sending a clear message. They froze, eyes wide in disbelief. But what happened next? Well, that's where the story gets complicated. You won't believe how quickly things spiraled from there. Stay tuned to find out what happened when everything went south. As the echoes of the shots faded, silence hung in the air like a heavy fog. My hands shook, but not from fear. Anger, adrenaline, and a sense of deep protection took over. I was standing there, my Glock still in hand, my mind racing, trying to process the chaos. These weren't cops. They weren't even real authorities. Just two men, dressed in polo shirts and khakis, acting like they had the power to control our lives. But they didn't. And they weren't about to find out the hard way. I looked at my wife. Her face was pale, her body trembling, but not from the cold. She was trying to stay calm, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She was pregnant, vulnerable, and this wasn't how we were supposed to be spending our afternoon. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but everything felt off. The world around me suddenly seemed so much bigger, like the rules had changed in an instant. I had to think fast. The two men were frozen, their eyes locked on me. One of them mouthed something I couldn't quite hear, but his body language said everything: fear, confusion, and something darker, maybe regret. But there was no way I was backing down now. Whatever was going on here, I wasn't about to let them get away with hurting my family. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. For a moment, everything stood still. The men were still processing what had just happened, and so was I. I didn't know if I was supposed to feel relieved or terrified, but deep down I could sense this wasn't over. It was like a storm had only just begun, and we were caught right in the middle of it. One of them, the taller guy with the scruffy beard, slowly took a step back, his hands raised slightly, signaling he didn't want any more trouble. His partner, a younger guy who looked more nervous than anything, was still glued to the spot. I couldn't read him yet. His eyes darted back and forth, unsure of what to do next. In the silence, my wife whispered, barely audible, "We need to go, now." I could see the panic creeping in her eyes, but I couldn't let her down. Not like this. Still, I hesitated. Something felt wrong, and I didn't want to rush into another trap. I scanned the area, trying to figure out if there was more going on here than just a couple of rogue HOA officers. There were no other cars around, no one else on the street. It was too quiet, too perfect for an ambush. I kept the Glock close, but my mind was racing. Something wasn't adding up. "Just go," she urged again, her voice shaky, but she was right. We had to leave. But as I took a step toward the car, a sharp sound broke the stillness. Someone was running toward us from the end of the street. The sound of footsteps grew louder, pounding against the pavement with urgency. My heart skipped a beat. Whoever was coming wasn't slowing down, and I could feel the tension building, thick in the air. My eyes shot to the two men. The taller one was now looking over his shoulder, his hand twitching toward his waistband. I didn't know what he was reaching for, but the last thing I wanted was to find out. I moved quickly, pushing my wife behind me, instinctively holding the Glock with both hands now. The guy with the scruffy beard glanced back at his partner, and I caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Fear, maybe. But there was something else there too, something that told me they weren't just going to let this go. I was waiting for the moment when they'd make a move, and that's when I heard the voice. "Hey!" The shout came from the end of the street, cutting through the tension like a knife. My breath caught in my throat. A third man, much older, with a baseball cap pulled low over his face, was now sprinting toward us. Move now!" The older man barked, his voice low but demanding. My instincts screamed at me to act fast. Something about this felt orchestrated. The three of them, coming from different angles, blocking us in like we were the prey. I turned, ready to protect my wife, but then I froze. The third man wasn't running toward us at all. He was running straight past, toward the van parked at the corner of the street. I watched, confused and tense, as the older man bolted past us toward the van. It didn't make sense. Why was he ignoring us, running straight to the vehicle like it was some sort of signal? My eyes flicked between him and the two men still standing in front of us. Their bodies were tense, hands twitching like they were waiting for something, waiting for him. Then it hit me. This wasn't about a parking spot. It wasn't about some petty HOA rules anymore. This was bigger, much bigger. These men had a plan, and we were the target. Suddenly, I heard a metallic click, and my heart dropped. The younger guy, the one who had been nervously standing off to the side, was slowly drawing something from his waistband. A gun. It was only a split second before I saw the glint of steel in the dim light, but it felt like an eternity. My instincts took over. I raised my Glock just in time, aiming directly at him, but before I could pull the trigger, something stopped me. A low, throaty growl came from the van. I turned just in time to see the older man, now holding something in his hand, throw a flashbang at our feet. The world exploded in white light, and for a split second, I was blinded, disoriented, unable to hear anything but the ringing in my ears. But I could feel the ground shift beneath me. I could hear footsteps running, but where were they going? What were they planning? And then, just as quickly as it had all started, I heard a voice, closer than before, cold and calm. "This is just the beginning." The world was a blur of light, sound, and chaos. My ears rang from the flashbang, my vision swimming as I stumbled back, trying to keep my footing. My heart pounded in my chest, but my mind was struggling to catch up. I couldn't let them get away. I had to protect my wife, had to make sure they didn't take advantage of this moment. I blinked hard, forcing the disorientation away. The footsteps continued, but now they were closer, all around me. A cold wave of dread washed over me as I realized what they were doing. They weren't just running to the van, they were encircling us. My grip tightened on the Glock, but before I could move, a voice cut through the haze. "Drop it. Now." I didn't hesitate. I turned fast, aiming the gun at the voice, but it wasn't one of the men. It was another figure, this time a woman. Tall, composed, dressed in tactical gear, her face partially covered. A black badge hung from her belt, but I didn't recognize the symbol. My blood ran cold. "What the hell do you want?" I demanded, voice shaking. My finger hovered over the trigger, but she wasn't moving, just watching me with calculating eyes. "You're in way over your head," she said, her voice low and steady. "And you don't even know who you're dealing with." Before I could respond, the older man from the van stepped forward. He was holding up his hands, trying to calm the situation. "Hold up, man. It's not what you think. We're not your enemies." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "That badge," the woman said, nodding toward the man, "is for a private contractor group. We were hired to keep you and your wife safe." I blinked, processing her words. "Safe? From what? Why?" The older man cleared his throat. "You've been targeted by some powerful people, the HOA, just a cover. We needed you to think it was about that, so you wouldn't see what was coming." I felt my breath catch. You set this up." "Not exactly," the woman replied, her eyes narrowing. "We had to create a diversion, and you were the best way to do it." Before I could piece it all together, the sound of a car engine roared to life. I turned just in time to see a sleek black SUV speed toward us. The woman's expression shifted, no longer cold, but focused, determined. "They're here," she muttered. The SUV screeched to a halt, and before anyone could react, the doors flung open. I could barely process what happened next. Several armed men poured out, guns drawn, but not at us, at the woman. "Get down!" I shouted to my wife, pushing her out of the way as the chaos erupted around us. My head spun, trying to keep track of what was happening. Were these more enemies? Alice? But the final twist came when I saw the woman, who I now realized was no innocent bystander, pull a gun from under her jacket and fire first. The SUV men dropped to the ground, but only for a moment. Then, another figure emerged from the vehicle, someone I never expected to see.